Have you ever noticed how a woman's attention can disappear almost instantly, leaving you wondering what went wrong? Sometimes it's not about what you say or even how you look. Often it's the small, almost invisible habits that slowly erode attraction. And the thing is, most men don't even realize they're doing it. Before we go any further, I want you to take a moment and think honestly about your interactions with younger women. Do you feel like you sometimes get close, only to watch the connection fizzle, leaving confusion, frustration, or even self-doubt? That discomfort you feel, it's not accidental. Attraction is fragile, and it thrives on subtle dynamics that are often ignored. The first thing to understand is this. Younger women, like all humans, are drawn to confidence, but not arrogance. They respond to presence, to authenticity, to a sense that a man has his life together, emotionally and mentally. But many older men unknowingly trigger the opposite effect. They project insecurity under the guise of experience, and it's often disguised in ways that seem harmless, even mature. Think about the way you talk about yourself. Do you often find yourself recounting past successes or comparing what you have now to what you had in the past? Do you feel the urge to teach or correct her perspective, believing your years of experience automatically give you authority? If so, there's a subtle danger there. Young women instinctively pick up on these cues. They can sense when a man is seeking validation, even from someone he wants to impress. It's a subtle energy. They don't consciously analyze it, they just feel it, and it makes attraction fade, almost without her realizing why. Another silent killer is what I call overstructuring. It's the tendency to try and control interactions, even lightly. Planning every move, giving unsolicited advice, or always steering conversations can feel safe and efficient to you, but it can feel constraining to her. Women, especially younger ones, are drawn to mystery and spontaneity. When a man overmanages every moment, it removes space for curiosity, for genuine engagement, for playful tension, the very things that keep attraction alive. And here's something few men admit to themselves: impatience. Not anger, not rudeness, just a subtle impatience with the way she thinks, speaks, or behaves. Younger women, in particular, are highly sensitive to timing and emotional rhythm. If she feels rushed or judged, attraction diminishes faster than any critique or argument could. By now, you might feel a bit uneasy. That's good. Unease is a signal that your awareness is expanding. If we go deeper, we'll uncover the real behaviors that silently destroy connection, habits that even the most self-aware men overlook. And understanding them is the first step toward not just attracting, but genuinely connecting with women in a way that feels natural, grounded, and lasting. If this is resonating with you so far, take a deep breath and reflect on your own patterns. Like this video and subscribe for more insights, because what comes next will change the way you see attraction forever. Let's start with one of the most overlooked habits, the constant need to impress. Many older men believe that their experience, wealth, or achievements should automatically command respect and attraction. On the surface, it seems reasonable. After all, you've lived more, learned more, accomplished more. But here's the subtle problem. When a man leans too heavily on status or past victories, it sends an unspoken message that he is seeking approval rather than offering presence. Younger women are remarkably perceptive when it comes to energy. They don't just notice what you say, they feel the intention behind it. If your stories, your lifestyle, or your possessions are presented in a way that feels like a performance, it quietly undermines attraction. Instead of inspiring curiosity or admiration, it can feel heavy, almost transactional. The result is distance, sometimes subtle, sometimes stark, between her interest and your expectations. Another habit that quietly kills attraction is over-explaining. Older men often assume that their wisdom gives them the right to clarify, justify, or correct. It may feel helpful, even protective, but to her, it can feel controlling. Over-explaining communicates a lack of trust in her perception and, without realizing it, reduces her sense of freedom. The more you feel compelled to explain yourself or the world, the less room there is for mutual discovery. And attraction thrives in spaces where curiosity and personal interpretation are allowed to grow. Then there's what I call emotional overavailability. It's not about kindness or reliability. It's about a subtle eagerness to please, to fix, or to constantly show care in ways that feel performative. Younger women, especially, are drawn to men who are emotionally stable and self-contained. When a man unconsciously seeks constant reassurance or reacts with intensity to small cues, it disrupts the balance of attraction. She may not call it out directly, but the feeling is there, a sense that she is carrying too much of the dynamic or that the emotional energy is misaligned. And let's not overlook conversational habits. Older men often default to debate, advice-giving, or teaching mode. It might come from a place of confidence, but it can feel like pressure. Women respond to conversational flow, playfulness, and emotional resonance more than to logic or life lessons. When every conversation carries a subtle undercurrent of correction or instruction, it can feel exhausting rather than engaging. Over time, it chips away at the sense of ease and excitement that fuels attraction. The final point in this section is the subtle impatience with youth itself. Younger women notice when a man judges their experiences, choices, or priorities. Even without words, an air of, "you don't know what you're doing," creates resistance. Attraction isn't about agreement or mentorship, it's about connection, mutual respect, and emotional presence. When judgment seeps in, even subtly, it quiets desire and curiosity. These patterns are rarely conscious. Most men genuinely intend to be confident, kind, and engaging. But intention alone isn't enough. Awareness and adjustment are what preserve attraction, what create space for her interest to flourish naturally. Another habit that often goes unnoticed but quietly kills attraction is what I call energy mismatch. This isn't about age or physical fitness, it's about how your energy feels in the interaction. Younger women are sensitive to emotional rhythm. If you carry tension, overeagerness, or nervousness, it's felt immediately. Even if you're trying to be charming or polite, subtle energy leaks, micro-expressions, pacing, voice tone, send messages she perceives unconsciously. She doesn't need you to be perfect, but she does respond to stability, calm, and an inner sense of ease. Closely tied to this is overcompensation. Many older men feel they must outdo youth with accomplishments, status, or stories from the past. On the surface, this seems harmless or even impressive, but it can backfire. Overcompensation communicates insecurity disguised as authority. Instead of drawing curiosity or admiration, it signals that you are seeking validation. And that creates tension, sometimes invisible, that makes her pull back emotionally. True attraction thrives on relaxed confidence, not competitive one-upmanship. Then there's the subtle habit of overanalyzing her reactions. Older men often read too much into texts, pauses, or body language, treating every gesture as a test. The unintended consequence is pressure. She may feel observed or evaluated rather than enjoyed. Women are drawn to men who allow them to exist without constant analysis, men who offer presence without judgment. Overthinking every moment creates a subtle drain on attraction. Body language is another silent influence. Stiff posture, crossed arms, or overly rigid facial expressions, even for someone who feels composed inside, send signals of tension or guardedness. On the flip side, exaggerated gestures, constant touching, or trying too hard to be dominant can feel unnatural and controlling. Attraction thrives in natural, relaxed physical presence. How you carry yourself without conscious effort communicates far more than words ever could. Let's also consider the energy of availability. Older men often unintentionally project neediness through constant responsiveness, replying instantly, adjusting schedules, or prioritizing her mood over their own. While kindness is valuable, when availability feels transactional or expectant, it diminishes allure. Women notice who holds their center and who allows life to flow independently. The balance of attention matters more than the amount. Finally, subtle displays of judgment or superiority quietly repel. Younger women can sense it when a man dismisses their experiences, downplays their knowledge, or frames them as naive. Even small comments, delivered lightly, carry weight. They can create distance without any conscious intention. True attraction comes from mutual respect and emotional safety, not from proving who has lived more or knows better. These patterns, the energy mismatch, overcompensation, overanalyzing, subtle body language, and judgment, operate beneath conscious thought. Awareness is the first step toward change. Once you recognize them, you gain the ability to create presence, stability, and natural intrigue, the kind of connection that doesn't fade, but grows. Now, let's explore habits that are even subtler, ones that happen inside your mind, but show themselves in ways she can feel. These are patterns of thinking and emotional expression that older men often don't notice, yet they quietly erode attraction. One of the biggest is preoccupation with outcomes. Many men enter interactions hoping to secure interest, approval, or even commitment. This may seem practical, but it communicates tension and neediness on an energetic level. Women feel it, even if they can't put it into words. Attraction isn't something you chase or negotiate. It's something you create by being fully present, by enjoying the interaction without an invisible agenda. When your mind is preoccupied with results, your presence becomes fragmented, and subtle cues of stress or anticipation leak out. That's a silent repellent. Closely related is the habit of self-criticism or doubt that isn't visible in words, but shows in energy. Many men think, if I'm confident on the outside, it won't matter how I feel inside. The truth is, it matters. Energy is magnetic. If you carry internal doubt, hesitation, or insecurity, even in tiny micro moments, it reduces natural attraction. Women are drawn to emotional stability, to the quiet sense of a man who trusts himself and his worth. No amount of charm can fully compensate for an internal narrative that is restless or uncertain. Another subtle habit is emotional rigidity. Older men often pride themselves on composure, logic, and control. Yet when emotional rigidity becomes inflexibility, it limits connection. Women, especially younger ones, sense when a man cannot adapt to the flow of conversation, cannot laugh at himself, or cannot tolerate small uncertainties without judgment. This rigidity can feel like a wall, even if your intention is to appear stable or reliable. Emotional flexibility, on the other hand, fosters attraction because it communicates safety, curiosity, and openness. Then there's over-intellectualization. Many men believe attraction can be fully controlled through reasoning, explanation, or strategy. While strategy can play a role, over-intellectualization disconnects from the emotional resonance that women subconsciously crave. Connection isn't built in the mind alone, it's created in the subtle interplay of presence, empathy, humor, and nonverbal communication. When you analyze every gesture, every word, every pause, you unintentionally drain the spontaneity and natural tension that makes interactions exciting. Finally, fear of loss is a hidden killer. It might show as possessiveness, subtle tests, or impatience. It often arises unconsciously from past experiences, from a worry that you might not measure up, or that attention will shift elsewhere. Women pick up on this energy immediately. Attraction thrives in freedom and confidence, not in restraint or emotional pressure. A man who is grounded, who values himself independently of validation, inspires genuine curiosity and desire. Recognizing these internal patterns is crucial. They are invisible to most men, yet they influence every interaction. Once you bring them to awareness, you can shift not only how you feel inside, but how your presence is perceived. That shift is magnetic, almost effortless, and it changes the dynamic in a way that words alone never could. Now let's look at some of the daily habits and small behaviors that older men often consider harmless, but which younger women sense immediately, and which quietly kill attraction. These aren't dramatic mistakes. They're subtle, almost invisible patterns that accumulate over time, eroding curiosity and desire. One common habit is excessive availability. You might think being responsive and attentive is attractive, but there's a fine line. When every call, text, or invitation is answered instantly, or when your schedule bends around her, you unintentionally signal neediness. Women are drawn to men who have their own center, who live fully in their own lives, and who maintain independence. The absence of that independence, even in small moments, makes you less intriguing. Presence and availability must feel intentional, not automatic. Closely related is habitual oversharing. Older men often feel that sharing more about their lives, past experiences, or challenges will create connection. In reality, oversharing too soon can overwhelm or flatten the natural intrigue. Attraction thrives on layers, mystery, curiosity, and emotional pacing. When you reveal everything too quickly, it diminishes the space for discovery. It's not about hiding your life, it's about allowing her to earn glimpses of depth naturally over time. Another subtle habit is overcorrection or constant adjustment to her reactions. If she laughs, you laugh harder. If she shows interest, you intensify your efforts. This creates imbalance. Women sense it intuitively. It signals that your emotional state is dependent on her responses, rather than being grounded in your own center. Attraction grows when a man is secure, composed, and in control of his own energy, not when it shifts with every micro-expression or reaction she has. Then there's the tendency to overplan or overstructure interactions. Older men often think that impressing someone requires strategy, detailed dates, or perfectly curated experiences. While intention matters, overplanning can feel rigid. Women respond to spontaneity, playfulness, and light unpredictability. When every moment is managed or directed, it subtly removes excitement and curiosity. Real connection emerges when interactions feel effortless, dynamic, and alive, not scheduled and performed. Finally, let's examine subtle judgment in communication. It could be teasing that feels dismissive, or correcting opinions without awareness. Even lightly, these moments create emotional friction. Attraction relies on emotional safety and the sense of being respected. When judgment creeps in, it sends an unconscious signal that she may need to defend herself or your approval, which quietly diminishes desire. All these habits, availability, oversharing, reaction-based adjustment, overplanning, and judgment, operate beneath conscious awareness. They're the invisible threads that pull attraction apart, often without you realizing it. The good news is that once you become aware, these patterns are remarkably easy to shift. Awareness alone begins to recalibrate presence, energy, and emotional impact. Small shifts in behavior, subtle adjustments in energy, and conscious presence transform interactions. They move them from predictable, safe, or transactional into dynamic and magnetic. That's when connection becomes effortless, and attraction grows naturally without forcing it. Now we arrive at one of the most powerful, yet most overlooked areas where older men unknowingly sabotage attraction: emotional and psychological traps. These are patterns that exist beneath behavior, inside your mind, and emotional habits, and they quietly shape how women perceive you. The first trap is defensiveness disguised as confidence. Many men assume that standing firm in their opinions or correcting misunderstandings signals strength. But when firmness becomes rigidity, it can feel like resistance to connection. Younger women especially pick up on this energy immediately. They sense when a man's stance comes from insecurity or fear of being questioned rather than grounded confidence. True confidence is calm, flexible, and doesn't need constant reinforcement. It simply exists, and it's magnetic without effort. Next is attachment to outcomes. Men often enter interactions with a mental checklist: amusement, interest, agreement, or even validation. This subtle focus on results creates pressure, unspoken, invisible, but undeniably felt. Attraction doesn't flourish under pressure. Women respond to presence, curiosity, and emotional freedom, not to subtle tension masked as charm or strategy. The more you release attachment to how things should go, the more natural and magnetic your energy becomes. Another common trap is seeking validation. You may not realize it, but the desire to impress or be appreciated through compliments, attention, or recognition can leak into your behavior. It could be through stories, jokes, or even subtle gestures meant to elicit approval. Women sense it intuitively. They are drawn to men who carry their own validation, who are internally secure, and don't need constant external reinforcement. That internal independence is one of the most alluring qualities a man can project. Closely linked is over-managing interactions. Men often try to control conversation, humor, or the flow of moments to create ideal impressions. On the surface, it seems thoughtful, even clever, but it can feel constraining, subtle as it may be. Attraction thrives on dynamic, unscripted interaction. It grows when curiosity, spontaneity, and playful tension are allowed to exist naturally without constant direction. Finally, there's subtle impatience with growth. Older men often expect younger women to operate at a certain emotional or cognitive level, based on their own experience. This may manifest as light correction, unsolicited advice, or internal judgment. Even if it's gentle, it communicates emotional pressure and reduces curiosity. Attraction grows when there's space for exploration, reflection, and mutual learning, not when she senses she's being evaluated or measured. All of these emotional traps, the subtle defensiveness, attachment to outcomes, validation seeking, overmanagement, and impatience, operate beneath conscious thought. They quietly erode attraction because they interfere with presence, natural flow, and emotional resonance. Becoming aware of them allows you to reclaim your energy, stabilize your presence, and create interactions that feel effortless, magnetic, and alive. When these traps are removed, something remarkable happens. Connection shifts from predictable or transactional to spontaneous, vibrant, and deeply engaging. She senses freedom, curiosity, and confidence in a way that is almost impossible to manufacture consciously. That is the essence of sustainable attraction. We've explored habits, energy patterns, and subtle psychological traps that quietly diminish attraction. Habits most men don't even realize they're doing. Now, it's time to bring it all together, because understanding isn't enough unless it transforms how you show up. The first truth is simple but profound. Presence matters more than performance. Younger women, and people in general, are drawn to the man who is fully here, not the one who is performing, analyzing, or seeking approval. Your stories, achievements, or strategies matter far less than the energy you carry. When your presence is calm, grounded, and emotionally stable, attraction flows naturally. You don't have to try harder. You have to be centered. Second, confidence isn't about proving anything. It's about self-containment. It's the quiet assurance that you are enough, independent of her reactions. When a man's energy is internally validated, he becomes magnetic without saying a word. This isn't arrogance or dominance. It's emotional clarity, and it's one of the most irresistible traits a man can develop. Next, allow curiosity and discovery to lead interactions. Attraction thrives on layers, on the subtle tension between knowing and exploring. Avoid over-explaining, over-planning, or over-managing moments. Let conversations unfold, let emotions breathe, and let mutual intrigue grow naturally. The space you create is what keeps her attention, her interest, and her emotional engagement alive. Awareness of subtle energy patterns is another game changer. The tension in your voice, the micro gestures in your posture, the flickers of impatience or judgment, all of it is felt long before any words are spoken. By noticing these patterns and consciously adjusting them, you recalibrate your presence. You shift from being predictable, cautious, or overly eager to being magnetic, calm, and engaging. Finally, release the invisible pressure of outcomes. Stop chasing validation, approval, or certainty. Stop measuring success in reactions or attention. When a man interacts without attachment, without subtle expectation, attraction grows effortlessly. Freedom, emotional, energetic, and mental, is magnetic. She senses it, even if she can't articulate why. If you take one thing from everything we've discussed, let it be this. Attraction isn't built through effort, manipulation, or external proof. It's built through awareness, presence, and emotional mastery. Small shifts, how you carry yourself, how you interact, how you respond, can transform the entire dynamic. You don't need more tricks. You need alignment, mind, body, and energy. Pay attention to these patterns in your life. Reflect on the subtle habits that may be undermining connection, and begin to practice presence over performance, stability over control, curiosity over judgment. The change may feel small at first, almost invisible, but it compounds, and the results are unmistakable. Attraction isn't complicated. It's a reflection of who you are when you are fully yourself, grounded, confident, and aware. When you master that, everything else becomes effortless. Like this video if this resonates, subscribe for more insights, and remember, understanding female psychology isn't about control. It's about connection, growth, and presence.